Good morning, printmakers. Sorry this has taken me so long. I had to order a new router from Netgear and it took me all day yesterday to get it set up. So I'm going to do a little printing demonstration so that you can pull your test prints. You just need one, but I'm starting by taking some pieces of paper that I cut to the right size that I want to use and soaking them in this plastic bucket. You can get plastic buckets like this in any size at all at a hardware store, and they make perfect soaking vessels. You only need a little bit of water. So that's been in there for a couple of minutes, and I have an old towel right here that I'm going to use as my blotting paper. I've got my block, which is the one I was kind of fooling around with on our first class. Still very small. It's white, dark design on white on one side, and it's a white design on dark on the other side. I haven't even made one rubbing of it, so who knows what it's going to look like. Usually I like to work on a piece of paper or, you know, something clean for sure. And I drew this little rectangle the same size as the paper, and I'm going to put my block in the middle of that. But I may not ink it up in there. So inking. Everybody should have a tube of this stuff, Caligo Safe Wash Relief Ink, and something to put it on. And so I am going to take mine, I'm going to squeeze out a line of ink at the top of this tray, and you can see the ink, see how shiny it is, but there's not a whole lot. You know, 1/16 of an inch thick. Then I'm going to take my brayer and I'm going to place it in the ink and pull it down like this. And you'll see it's kind of like rolling out any other material. Well, of course, with pie dough, you already have a big piece of dough and you're flattening it. But you're using the same motions. You're just moving back and forth. Sometimes you can go side to side. That helps to smooth it, to spread it. This is a very squeaky brayer. I'm rolling it, and you start to be able to see the texture of the ink. I'm not sure the light is good enough, but it's not quite where I want it to be. So I'm going to just keep rolling it harder. And now I'm not sure over the squeak of the brayer if you can hear the snap. Probably not. It's just the way I want it. Let's see if we can focus on it. Do you see how the brayer is very shiny, but it's not goopy. It's just an even layer of ink over the whole brayer. Now I'm going to stick this over here, move my block down here, and I'm going to do the exact same motion on the block as I just did on the cookie sheet. So there we go, transferring on black ink to a linoleum block print, or linoleum block. This isn't a print yet. First time you make a print, it's gonna need a little bit more ink. So I'm going back to the source, grabbing some more. Notice how I haven't quite gotten that lower edge. So sometimes it helps to just turn your block. Sometimes it helps to angle your brayer. This block is particularly warped a little bit, but I think I've got it. So I'm putting my brayer back over on my ink pad, but instead of putting it down in the ink, I'm going to lay it like this. They all should have this little rest on the back, this thing. So just put your brayer to rest on its back. Keeps it from eventually getting a flattened side. And you can see I've gotten some ink on my fingers. I'm going to rub it off up here. You can also wash it off now if you're concerned. Now I'm going to carefully pick this up and move it over here and place it just where I want it. Now I'm going to take some paper out. And one thing that I like to do is I like to take a little scrap piece of paper like this and fold it in half. And these become my pincers. This way I don't really have to touch the paper with my actual dirty fingers. So I can reach in here. Well, I'm going to have to do a little touching. Grab the paper, pull it out. I don't know if you can see all that. Give it a little shake, put it in the towel, lay the towel on top, and then I'm going to just pat it. I'm not going to pound it, rub it, do too much. I'm just going to give it a good pat. Because I mentioned earlier that when we're working with this water-soluble oil-based ink, in order for it to remain steady and oil-based, it can't hit too much water. And it needs at least 24 hours, preferably 48 hours, to dry before you introduce any more water to it. So let's look at this. It's damp. One nice thing about it is it's very soft and absorbent now, but it doesn't have any standing water. And the paper I had you order, Arches Cover, has two sides. One side is, they're very similar, but one side is a little bit more textured, a little bit more chaotic in its weave. You can see it if you hold it up to the light. The other side is much more of a weave pattern. You can see the warp and weft. You want to print always on the more chaotic side, the more textured side. So this is it for me, and I don't know if you can see the texture or not. You're all going to have to do that. Sometimes I have to pick up a student's paper and say, oh yeah, it's this side, but you get the hang of it. Then I'm going to take it and placing this side down, the side I want, I'm going to put it over my guidelines, and I'm just going to drop it onto the block. And then I always just take my hand and give it a good press. This starts the whole adhering process. And you can see it already starting to emboss around the edges. And then I'm going to take my trusty spoon, and I always hold my paper. I had you buy thumbtacks and a printing board because a lot of times beginners would like to tack their paper. Sometimes you cut your paper an extra inch wide, you tack on that extra inch, and then you have enough to trim off later. But it keeps it from ever shifting. But a block this small, it doesn't seem worth it. So notice how I'm holding my spoon. I'm holding it like this. I'm not holding the handle. I'm holding it right by the bowl. And I'm rubbing, rubbing, rubbing. Now, just like with everything else, I try not to turn my hand. I turn my paper instead. So, or in this case, I'm going to try to turn my whole body. I like to go around the edges first, just to make sure I've hit them. Those are often where you forget. And then I'm going to concentrate, especially on the side I know to be dark. Really giving it a good hard rub. This is really good for your upper arms. It's definitely elbow grease. Now I'm concentrating on the light side. One thing you can do, and this is always helpful, is when you're printing, you can just peel up one edge, holding one edge down, and just see how your print is going. Mine looks good. So I'm going to take a chance and pull the print. And that's what I have so far. I kind of like it. I think I'm going to give myself an earring on the black side though. So you should have a small, like a 4x6 or a 5x7 print of your sampler board that looks something like this. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them in class. Ta-ta.